There's a number that used to mean you made it, $100,000 a year, six figures. Say it out loud. And for about 40 years, it meant the exact same thing to everyone who heard it. The house, the two kids, the savings account that actually had something in it, the quiet confidence that you were going to be fine. You hit that number, you won. That was the whole deal. So here's the part nobody warned you about. You can earn that exact number today, in 2026, and still end up in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, staring at your bank balance on a Sunday night, wondering where it all went and why it feels like you did something wrong. You didn't. The number didn't betray you. The number just quietly stopped meaning what it used to, and almost nobody noticed the precise moment it happened. Today, we're going to find that moment, and by the end, you're going to understand the single most uncomfortable truth about money in America right now, which is that the size of your paycheck stopped being the question that decides your life. Let's start with how far the finish line actually moved, because it's worse than you think. Earning six figures used to make you rare. It doesn't anymore. Right now, roughly 43% of American households pull in $100,000 or more. The typical household, the one sitting dead center, already makes around $83,600. So that magic number you spent your whole career chasing isn't rich. It isn't even close to rich. It's just solidly, nervously, middle of the pack. But here's the quieter gut punch, the one buried so deep in the data that most people work their entire lives and never once see it. Since about 1979, American workers got dramatically more productive. We build more, make more, produce more per hour than our parents ever did. And normally, when you produce more, your pay climbs right along with it. That's simply how it had always worked. Except somewhere around 1979, those two lines, what you produce and what you get paid, quietly split apart and never found their way back to each other. If your paycheck had just kept pace with how much more you actually produce, the typical worker making around $53,000 today would be taking home closer to $76,000. That gap, that $23,000 raise that never showed up, isn't new. It's decades old. You've been living inside it your entire career, and it never once appeared on a single pay stub. Now stack the second thing on top, because the raise that never came is only half of the story. The other half is that the money itself shrank right there in your hands. Go back to the year 2000. $100,000 back then was serious money, the kind that genuinely bought the dream. To buy today what that same $100,000 bought in 2000, you would need about $187,000. Flip that around, and it gets even uglier. Your six-figure salary today has the actual spending power of roughly $54,000 in 2000 money. You're earning what sounds like a fortune and quietly living like it's half that. And before you tell yourself this all happened back in some distant, dusty economy, it didn't. Just since 2015, prices are up about 40%. The $100,000 you earned then is worth about $140,000 now, just to stand in the same spot. Even since 2024, what cost you $100,000 then costs about $106,000 today. 2 years, $6,000 of your life gone while you weren't even looking. But here's the part that actually explains the feeling. That specific low-grade dread of looking at a good income and still feeling flat broke. Because the price increases didn't spread out evenly and politely across everything you buy. They landed almost entirely on the stuff you cannot opt out of. Since 2015, the cost of putting a roof over your head is up about 49%. Food, the actual food you put in your body to keep living, up about 39%. And meanwhile, the flat screen TV on your wall, the phone in your pocket, the clothes in your closet, they barely moved. Some of it got cheaper. So sit with the cruelty of that for a second. The things you could theoretically live without stayed affordable, almost generous. And the three things no human being can actually skip, shelter, food, and as we're about to get into, staying healthy, are exactly the things that sprinted away from you. That's why you can walk through a store, see a giant television for a few $100, think the economy seems totally fine, then drive home and feel your rent quietly eating you alive. You feel broke because everything you need got expensive, while everything you don't stayed cheap. And then there's the factor that quietly outweighs almost everything else, and it has nothing to do with how much you make. It's one single dot on a map. Take that exact same $100,000 salary, don't change it by a penny, and watch what happens to it depending on where you're standing. Drop it in Manhattan. After a tax bite of nearly 30% and prices running 130% above the national average, that $100,000 is worth, in real spending terms, $29,420. Let that just sit there for a second. A full six-figure salary, gutted down to the buying power of 29 grand. Move it to San Francisco, it's worth about 43,000. Honolulu, about 39. Boston, around 50. Now flip the entire thing over. Take that identical $100,000 and carry it to Oklahoma City, and suddenly it's worth about $91,900. El Paso, around $90,000. Tulsa, about $89,800. Same paycheck, same year, the same exact number, on the same exact tax return. Worth roughly 3 times as much in one city as it is in another. You didn't get a raise. You didn't take a pay cut. You just crossed a state line. So if location is the trap, let's walk through its rooms one at a time. Starting with the one absolutely nobody can climb out of, the house. Mortgage rates right now sit around 6.5%. Doesn't sound dramatic until you remember that back in 2021, people were locking in rates under 3%. So picture what that did to the entire market. About 80% of people who currently own a home are sitting on a mortgage rate under 6%, a rate they will never, ever see again in their lives. So they don't sell. Why on earth would they? Selling means handing back their cheap rate and signing up for double, so nobody lists their house. And when nobody lists, there's simply nothing to buy. Inventory dries up to almost nothing, and prices stay jammed up against the ceiling, even though almost no one is actually buying anything. The whole market just locks in place, frozen solid, with you standing on the outside of the glass looking in. And renting is no escape hatch either. The average rent in America is now around $1,737 a month, every single month, for a roof you will never own one brick of. Then there's the second rent you're probably already paying without ever once calling it that, staying alive. Health insurance in America has quietly mutated into a second mortgage. A family of 4 on a marketplace plan pays around $2,230 a month, which piles up to nearly $27,000 a year just to stay covered, just for the privilege of having insurance at all, and it's climbing fast. In a single year, premiums for a 40-year-old jumped 21% nationally, and in Arkansas, they leapt a stomach-turning 67% in 1 year. But here's the real trapdoor, the part that turns one bad year into total ruin. Even with insurance, fully covered, paying every premium right on time, a family can still owe more than $21,000 straight out of their own pocket in a single year. One bad diagnosis, one wrong scan, and a household's entire life savings can vanish overnight. And if you've got kids, there's a third rent already waiting for you. The average American parent now hands over about 20% of their household income, a full fifth of everything they earn, just to childcare. Center-based infant care averages over $17,000 a year. A full-time nanny runs about $45,000. Stretch that across an entire childhood, and raising one single kid to age 18 now costs around $303,000. In Hawaii, over $412,000 for one child. And this is where the whole thing stops being an inconvenience and turns genuinely dark, because the economy didn't just get more expensive across the board, it split clean in two. Picture the letter K. On the top arm, the people who already own things, the houses, the stocks, the assets, are watching their wealth and their wages race upward faster than ever before. And on the bottom arm, everybody else is sliding the other direction, falling behind prices and quietly putting the groceries on a credit card just to make it to Friday. And those cards are starting to buckle under the weight. Americans now owe a record $1.25 trillion on credit cards. The average household is dragging around about $11,000 of that at interest rates north of 21%, which is a financial wound that just keeps bleeding and never closes. And here's the number that should genuinely scare you. The share of people at least 3 months behind on those cards just hit 13%. The last time it was that bad was 2011, when the country was still crawling out of the wreckage of the last great financial crash. Student loans are cracking along the exact same fault line. This isn't people blowing money on yachts and luxury. This is people borrowing at 21% interest to buy food. So let's pull all the way back and look at what this has quietly done, because it's secretly rewritten the entire rulebook of who's rich and who's poor in this country. It's gotten so lopsided that in 5 states, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Maryland, Hawaii, and California, a household income of $200,000 a year is still technically just middle class. $200,000. Middle class. In those places, your $100,000 barely clears the bottom rung. Meanwhile, carry that same $100,000 to Mississippi or West Virginia or Louisiana, and you're suddenly living a comfortable upper middle class life. Zoom all the way down into single cities, and it gets genuinely surreal. In San Jose, The middle class stretches from about $99,000 all the way up to nearly $300,000. In Cleveland, that exact same $100,000 earner is, mathematically, upper class. Same number, two completely different lives, decided almost entirely by a zip code. And here's the single most brutal fact in all of this. In San Francisco, a family of four needs about $231,000 a year just for a basic, no-frills, nothing fancy existence. That is more than the typical San Francisco family even earns. Read that again. The average family in that city literally cannot afford a basic budget in their own city. So a whole class of people quietly figured out the cheat code, and it isn't a bigger paycheck, it's a moving truck. Remote and hybrid workers started hauling their fat coastal salaries into cheaper cities and instantly getting their entire life back. In Pittsburgh, the typical home lists around $250,000, roughly $150,000 under the national average, and it's one of the rare places left where buying is actually cheaper than renting. In Decatur, Illinois, a house eats up just 14% of a normal income. In Enid, Oklahoma, rent runs about $647 a month. The whole game flipped, and almost nobody bothered to announce it. So if you've ever stared at a good salary and felt like you were quietly failing at something everyone else had clearly figured out, hear this part clearly. You didn't fail. The game changed underneath you while you were doing everything right, and nobody told you. The people winning right now aren't out earning you. They already own the assets, or they simply moved somewhere the same number still buys a life. For about 40 years, the only question that mattered was, how much do you make? That question is dead. In 2026, the only one left, the one that actually decides the shape of your whole life, is where do you make it? Not how hard you work, not how much you earn, just where. So before you go chase a bigger number, look hard at the one on your lease and ask yourself honestly which side of that map you're standing on. Because the raise was never going to save you, the move might. If any of this rearranged something in your head, do me a favor and subscribe, because we take apart a different piece of America exactly like this every single week. And I actually want to hear from you on this one. So what do you think about all of it? Drop it in the comments and let me know.